As Christmas approached, Dele's excitement for his family's visit was overshadowed by the enigmatic connection between the coat he had found and his late father. The coat, which seemed to harbor a warmth and pulse of its own, held a photograph that mirrored his father's likeness with unsettling precision. Just as Dele began to unravel the coat's mystery, a surprising revelation linked the coat to his father's past in a way he never expected. Would this discovery bring solace or shatter his world further? Watch closely to uncover the full truth behind the coat and its profound connection to Dele's family. By midnight, Dele woke with a sudden jolt, his heart racing as if it was about to leap out of his chest. He felt like he was trapped under a heavy blanket that he couldn't push away. His whole body was frozen, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move a single muscle. The room around him was pitch black, and it felt like an invisible hand was pressing down on him, making it hard to breathe. Dele wanted to scream for help, but his voice was stuck in his throat. Every breath was slow and painful, as if he was breathing through a tiny straw. He could hear strange, whispering sounds in the darkness, like a distant, eerie conversation he couldn't quite understand. The shadows on the walls seemed to dance and shift, adding to the frightening feeling that he was not alone. As the minutes dragged by, the fear in Dele grew. He could see vague shapes moving around the edges of his vision, but whenever he tried to look directly at them, they disappeared. It was as if the darkness itself was alive and playing tricks on him. His mind raced with thoughts of what could be causing this terrifying experience. Just as Dele was about to lose hope, the first light of dawn began to seep through the curtains. With the arrival of morning, the weight pressing on him vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. Dele sat up, drenched in sweat and shaking. He stared at the room around him, trying to understand what had happened. His heart was still pounding, and the sense of dread lingered as he tried to piece together the strange and frightening events of the night. Once upon a time. It was almost Christmas, and Dele was buzzing with excitement. The cold air made him shiver a little, but his heart was warm with anticipation. His father had given him money to buy new clothes for the holiday, and Dele couldn't wait to find something special. He made his way through the crowded village market, where colorful stalls lined the streets, each one overflowing with clothes of every kind. Dele had decided to look for used clothes to make his money go further. He was on a mission to find a great deal. The market was full of noise and activity, with people chatting and vendors calling out their prices. Dele moved from store to store, searching through piles of shirts, pants, and jackets. In the busy market, Dele spotted something special among the piles of clothes. It was a coat like no other. Its deep, rich blue and shimmering silver patterns seemed to glow with a magical light. Dele's heart raced as he reached for the coat, feeling a mysterious pull towards it. He carefully set the coat aside, thinking about how perfect it would be for Christmas. It felt like the kind of coat that could make the holiday unforgettable. With a smile of anticipation, Dele continued to look through the other clothes, but his mind kept drifting back to the coat. He imagined himself wearing it, feeling like a hero in a storybook. He knew he had to buy it. His excitement grew as he approached the vendor, his fingers already reaching for the money. Just then, a woman in a bright red scarf rushed up and snatched the coat. Her movements were quick and almost too smooth. Dele's heart sank as he watched her grab the coat, her fingers brushing against the fabric as if she knew its secret. She handed the vendor a stack of money, and he accepted it with a nod. Dele's disappointment was like a cold shadow over his holiday cheer. The woman walked away, the coat swishing behind her as if it had a life of its own. Dele felt a pang of unease. Something about the way she moved, and the way the coat seemed to shimmer as she walked away, made Dele wonder if there was more to this coat than met the eye. He stood there, staring at the spot where the coat had been, feeling a strange mix of anger and worry. Dele's frustration was like a storm inside him. He couldn't believe that the coat he had set aside was taken by someone else. He marched up to the woman with the red scarf, his face red with anger. "That coat is mine," he shouted. "I set it aside, and you took it." The woman turned, her eyes cold and unfeeling. I paid for it, she said sharply. It's mine now. Dele tried to argue, but the market vendor came over, his face serious. I'm sorry, but she offered more money, he said. The coat is hers. Dele's heart sank as the vendor handed the coat to the woman. The woman gave Dele a smug look before turning away with the coat. Dele was left standing there, feeling a hot wave of anger and humiliation wash over him. It wasn't just about the coat, it felt like a personal defeat. He stormed out of the market, the festive decorations and cheerful voices around him now feeling like a cruel joke. The coat had been a symbol of a special Christmas, and now it was gone. As he walked home, he kicked at the cobblestones, his anger making him stumble. Just as he reached his doorstep, Dele noticed something strange. The sky had turned an unusual shade of red, like a warning. He felt a shiver run down his spine and heard a whisper, faint but eerie, carried on the wind. It was almost as if the coat, even in its absence, was still affecting him. Dele couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this coat, and the frustration that burned inside him was only the beginning of a much bigger mystery. When Dele got home, he was fuming with anger. He stomped into the kitchen, where his mother was preparing dinner. I can't believe it, he shouted. The coat I wanted was stolen right from my hands. It's so unfair. His mother turned from the stove, her face calm and understanding. She put down her spoon and walked over to him. Tell me everything that happened, she said softly. Dele recounted the entire event, his voice full of frustration. His mother listened without interrupting, her eyes never leaving his face. When he was done, she took a deep breath and spoke gently. Dele, I understand you're upset. But remember, some things in life aren't worth losing your peace over. There will be other coats, other chances. Don't let this ruin your Christmas spirit. Dele grumbled but felt a small, soothing calm in his mother's words. It was true, Christmas was coming, and he didn't want to spend it angry and upset. His mother's advice was wise, even if he didn't want to hear it. As he sat at the table, Dele noticed a small glint on the floor. It was a tiny piece of fabric, a shimmering thread from the coat that had slipped off when the woman took it. Dele picked it up, feeling a strange chill as he touched it. He looked at his mother, who was busy cooking, and wondered if there was something more to the coat than he realized. Maybe, he thought, I should try another shop, just like she said. Maybe there's something else waiting for me. Reluctantly, Dele decided to follow his mother's advice, but the tiny piece of fabric in his hand made him uneasy, as if it were a clue to something bigger. A few days later, Dele decided to give the market another try. He was hopeful, even though he still felt a bit sad about the coat he lost. The village market was buzzing with people buying gifts and decorations for Christmas. Dele walked through the crowded stalls, keeping an eye out for something special. As he wandered, he spotted a new section of the market he hadn't seen before. Excitedly, he began to look at the clothes. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Dele saw something that made his heart leap. There, hanging on a rack, was the same beautiful coat he had wanted before. It was just like the one he had lost, with the same intricate patterns and rich fabric. Dele couldn't believe his eyes. He quickly made his way over to the store. The vendor, an elderly man with a kind face, noticed Dele's excitement. I see you like this coat, the man said with a smile. Dele nodded vigorously and handed over the money. The vendor wrapped up the coat carefully, and Dele felt a rush of joy as he took it into his arms. But as he walked away, clutching the coat tightly, he felt a strange sensation. The coat seemed to grow warmer in his hands, almost as if it had a life of its own. The warmth spread up his arms, and a shiver ran down his spine. Dele glanced around, but everything seemed normal. He shrugged off the feeling, deciding to focus on the happiness of having his special coat. Yet, as he headed home, the warmth from the coat felt oddly comforting, as if it was trying to tell him something he couldn't quite understand. Back home, Dele was eager to try on the coat. He slipped it on, and it fit him perfectly, hugging his body with a surprising warmth. As he looked at himself in the mirror, something strange happened. The coat seemed to glow with a soft, golden light. Dele's heart raced with a mix of excitement and unease. The coat reminded him so much of his late father. His father used to wear a coat just like this one, and seeing it now brought back a flood of memories. He remembered the way his father used to smile warmly at him, how they would walk together through the market, and the stories his father told him. Dele felt a lump in his throat, and tears began to well up in his eyes. As he stood there, overwhelmed with emotion, he noticed something even stranger. The coat felt alive, as if it were pulsing gently with a heartbeat of its own. The warmth it radiated seemed to wrap around him like an embrace, making him feel both comforted and a little afraid. Dele wiped his tears and decided to hang the coat in the corner of his room. But as he hung it up, he saw a small, shiny object fall from the coat's pocket. It was an old, faded photograph of a man who looked eerily like his father. Dele picked up the photograph, his hands shaking. The resemblance was too strong to ignore. The coat was more than just a memory, it seemed to be connected to his father in a way he couldn't yet understand. Dele's mind raced with questions, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the coat was hiding something important. As Christmas got closer, Dele could barely contain his excitement. His mother had told him that his twin cousins, whom he hadn't seen in years, were coming to visit. Dele remembered all the fun times they used to have together. The thought of seeing them again made him feel like the holidays were going to be extra special this year. Finally, the big day arrived. Dele's heart raced with anticipation as he watched from the window. The moment his cousins arrived, the house burst into joyful noise. They hugged tightly, and the room filled with laughter and stories of the past. Dele's cousins brought gifts and shared tales of their adventures since they last met. As the sun set, the laughter continued. They played games, exchanged stories, and even cooked together, making the house smell delicious with festive treats. Dele felt a warm, happy feeling in his heart. It was like everything was perfect. But as night began to fall, a strange unease settled over him. The mood shifted as Dele noticed that his cousins seemed a little tired, more so than usual. They mentioned feeling a bit off, but they brushed it off with smiles. Despite their attempts to seem cheerful, Dele couldn't shake the feeling that something was not quite right. He tried to ignore it, hoping it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. As everyone finally said goodnight, Dele was left alone in his room. The coat he had recently bought hung silently in the corner. He glanced at it and wondered if it had anything to do with the strange feeling he had. Little did he know, the coat was about to reveal more than just memories. On Christmas Eve, Dele was full of excitement. He had set out his special coat, eager to wear it for the big day. He imagined how happy everyone would be, and he couldn't wait to celebrate with his cousins and family. As he climbed into bed, he smiled, dreaming of the fun and laughter that awaited him. But as soon as Dele closed his eyes, he felt a strange, prickly sensation. It was as if something was watching him. He tried to shake it off and focus on his happy thoughts, but the feeling only grew stronger. Just as he was about to drift into sleep, a cold breeze swept through his room, making him shiver. Dele sat up quickly, looking around his dark room. The breeze seemed to come from nowhere, and he noticed that his new coat was moving slightly, as if someone invisible was touching it. His heart began to race, and he felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Suddenly, the room was filled with soft, whispering voices. Dele couldn't understand what they were saying, but they sounded urgent and worried. The whispers grew louder, and Dele felt a growing sense of fear. He tried to call out for his mother, but no sound came from his mouth. In a panic, Dele leaped out of bed and grabbed the coat, hoping it might be the source of the strange disturbance. As he held it tightly, the whisper stopped, and the room fell silent again. Dele's hands trembled as he tried to understand what was happening. The coat felt heavier than before, and he wondered if it held secrets that were yet to be revealed. Dele woke up in the middle of the night, and something was terribly wrong. He couldn't move his arms or legs. It was like he was stuck in his bed, even though he tried so hard to move. His heart was racing, and he felt a deep, scary feeling in his chest. The room was dark, and shadows danced on the walls. Dele tried to call for his mom, but no sound came out of his mouth. The fear made his breath come in short, fast gasps. Then he heard it, a low, whispering voice. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The whispers were soft, almost like a secret, but they felt so creepy. They seemed to say things Dele couldn't understand, but they made him feel even more frightened. As he tried to break free from the invisible force, he noticed a strange glow coming from the coat he had bought. It was hanging in the corner of his room, and the glow seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The whispers grew louder and more urgent. They felt like they were trying to tell him something, but Dele couldn't figure out what. Every time he tried to move, the pressure on his chest grew stronger. He could almost see dark shapes shifting around him, as if they were alive. Dele was scared and confused, unable to understand why this was happening or what the whispers meant. Time seemed to stretch on forever until, just before dawn, the invisible force suddenly released him. Dele sat up, drenched in sweat, his heart pounding in his ears. He knew he had to find out what was going on with the coat and why these terrifying things were happening.